Hi there. In this lecture we see Mikhail Chigorin playing against Steinitz in the 1892 World Championship match. This is round 1 and Chigorin kicks off with e4. We go into an Italian game. Now the Evans Gambit, c3 bishop a5 from Steinitz, white castles. So technically we know actually d4 is actually a little bit better here than castling, and this position should be even. But let's go with castling because we get these very instructive games and similar positions anyway that we can use ideas from. So actually here Steinitz plays d6. This is so much better than queen f6, and Steinitz's own statistics kind of emphasize that. So statistically with d6, Steinitz had a 35.7% win rate with black, and it's limiting white's win rate to 35.7%. That's the crucial aspect here. So the rest draws. If we compare that to the move queen f6, it's much more controversial. So we have queen f6, and this is about 13 games actually Steinitz has played with queen f6. It basically does have a win rate of 30.8% win rate. That's probably due to Steinitz's just general strength that he's able to win with black, but he did lose a lot more. He lost 53.8% was a win rate for white against queen f6, so he did lose a lot more with queen f6. So he's playing a very good move, d6 instead. Here, after d4, another very good move, bishop g4. Black should be slightly better here. Now bishop b5 is a very accurate move from white in the circumstance. If d takes e5, we get a little bit punished. Bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, knight takes e5, forks our queen and bishop. You might think, well, we've got the bishop here, right? It's problematic after queen h4. There's no defender of h2. Black has some serious threats sometimes. Let's say bishop e3, knight f6, and knight d2 to support the e pawn. Let's say it goes like this, and black castles. We should be careful and play f3. If we played f4, it could be game over for us pretty quickly here, because of knight g4 threatening queen takes h2, checkmate. And here, guess what black plays? Yeah, knight takes e3 and it's game over. Bishop b6, winning our queen in broad daylight. So yeah, if we have to stick with f3, yeah, black is actually with a significant advantage in this position. Even though we've got the bishop here, we've got a worse pawn structure. Black's got a dangerous position. So anyway, yeah, so that's why, one of the reasons why actually bishop b5 is a useful pin to have on the c6 knight. E takes is played c takes, and now bishop d7. White is again slightly better after this bishop d7. If knight ge7, just permitting d5, a6, this way of playing it for black does seem to offer a small edge overall. And if we'd gone to e2, again it's useful for black to play bishop takes f3 for knight e5. Small edge for black. But anyway, bishop d7, bishop b2. So here actually bishop b2 is a decent move. There's also knight a3. Just putting the bishop instead on g5. And let's say h6. This continuation after d5, knight b8, queen a4 hits the bishop on a5, and bishop b6, e5. It looks a bit scary for black, but actually black should be able to equalize. c6 here, b takes here. Black should be in an even position, although it is scary looking. But anyway, bishop b2, we have knight c to e7. Knight f6, a slight improvement potentially. Here, if d5, knight e5, this should remain even. But knight c to e7, we have bishop takes d7 check, queen takes d7, and now knight a3. If d5, opening up the bishop, knight f6, knight bd2, let's take this scenario. The bishop drops back to b6. We could double the pawns and play knight h4, and we do get a significant advantage here, trying to emphasize the f5 square weakness. Black doesn't really want to take on e3 to open up the rook. So we do get a significant edge here. So it does look as though d5 has a lot going for it as a follow-up to bishop b2 now. But knight a3 was played. We have knight h6, knight c4, knight b6, sorry, bishop b6. So a4, so with the threat of a5 to trap that bishop on b6. c6, e5. Now here, Steinitz really goes into a visually crushing position by playing d5, so letting the knight hop into d6 with check. If d takes e5, this is a better bet. Even though bishop a3 looks scary, this does look scary. Black could exchange off queens and play c5. And here black's trying to hold on. White is significantly better in any case here. But what happens in the game after d5 looks really terrible for black after knight d6 check with the king on f8. And now bishop is even pointing, kind of x-raying the king with bishop a3. King moves to g8, but this rook's out of the game. And this knight's not great on h6. But even worse, actually, another downside of the black position, we've got this continual a5 threat because the knight's got pressure on b7. We have knight h to f5. And actually, Chigorin goes for a flashy little combination here, where actually it wasn't even needed. And this has been pointed out by many of the kibitzers at chessgames.com. So what do you think is a really strong objective move which might not be flashy here? Objectively strong move, even if it's not flashy. What would be strong here for white for 100 points? Yeah, just knight takes f7 was played, which is flashy, but actually just a5, getting a rook to the 7th, pressure, much more pressure on the black position. And what does black do? If queen e6, we can harass the queen further, take out f7, and here we can actually just take on e7 and then take the rook, crushing. If knight takes e7, rook takes, and then again taking the rook. So yeah, so let's look at that again for a moment. Now what if bishop c7, that's going into a nasty pin. Let's say black plays rook b8, rook takes a7. Here, we've got this rook on the 7th, and actually e6 is pretty powerful. It vacates the e5 square. After knight e5, we can actually play knight e to f7 and hitting the queen, but we've also vacated e5. It's not just about winning the rook here. We've vacated e5. What do you think the strongest move is here? Yeah, actually, you know what? We can play queen e2. So black's kind of paralyzed with this rook on the 7th, and we're threatening queen e5 to play queen takes h8 checkmate, supported by the knight. So h5, let's say rook takes c7, we can play queen takes e6, is also pretty dismantling for black. Yeah, we can play it like that. So that's really nice. And we don't even need to play queen takes e6. We can also play queen e5, so with the mate threat, as mentioned before. And let's say knight g7, then we can consider taking on h8, slight upgrade, even better. So anyway, it basically shows that a5 is pretty crushing stuff, whatever happens, it seems. But yeah, the flashy knight takes f7 is fun, and it's also a very dangerous move for black. It's very winning for white still with knight takes f7. It's the flashier alternative. So king takes is played. If rook e8, yeah, we're just going to take on h8. Thanks very much. If knight g6 again, we're just going to take on h8 here. So king takes is played. e6 check. So now, if queen takes e6, we have this nice fork winning the queen. So king takes has to be played. It's here where there's a slight inaccuracy in this follow-up. What would you play here for 10 points? well, it needs calculation, but it's nice to get another piece in the game with rook e1 check. Knight e5 was played, so that rook's still left in bed at f1. We get this rook involved. Then we've got things like bishop takes e7 check, and now knight e5, but the rook's kind of more involved. We're hitting the queen, queen f3 check, and then here, for example, g4, just winning material. If we look at this again, if queen f5, we can actually play a nudging move, quite fascinating nudging idea. Can you see what it is? We want to play queen f3 check, ideally. And can we arrange that in any way, shape or form? There is a nice way of arranging it with g4. Now generally you don't want to move pawns around your king, safety point. Queen f4, how do we nudge the queen anyway? We've got no other pawns to hit the queen. We retreat the knight here. And after queen g5, we can now even make the situation even worse for black with h4, putting the queen on h4. So queen f3 check is even more effective. And now rook e6 check, and black's very limited options. We can just simply take the queen there. So yeah, it's pretty crushing stuff after this rook e1, getting another kind of piece involved. But knight e5 was played, which is still good for white. It really is a crushing position. So black has various options. Queen c8 was chosen. If queen e8, rook e1, this is looking very scary after g4. Again, with the idea that we really want this knight to move, so we've got queen f3 check. So let's say knight h6. Actually, we can even do better than queen f3 here. We can play g5 check, and then here bishop takes e7 check. Now it takes knight f3 and we win the queen. So let's say h5, we can just, actually we can take on e7 and again g5 check and then win the queen. Let's say black played queen c7 to this knight e5. This seems the most accurate. Yeah, we can still bring the rook in, no? And then still take on e7 here. Queen f3 is strong here. And in this position we can play a5. And then knight takes c6 as a double check, forcing the king to move. And here we've got a cute move, knight e7. Not just hitting f5, it's a multi-purpose attacking move. Not just with the pressure on f5, but also threatening knight takes d5 check, forking king and queen. So here, absolutely winning, or g6, we can fork the king and queen. So yeah, it's pretty devastating stuff, even with the strongest move, queen c7. So anyway, yeah, so Steinitz chose queen c8. We have rook e1. Everything's attacking in any case now. King f6. Queen h5 carries with it a mate in one threat, can you see, for 5 points. We've controlled escape squares. Knight g4 is a mate threat here because it would also mean the rook controlling e6. So g6, trying to avoid that mate in one. Bishop takes e7 check is played. Also, you know, knight g4 check is very strong for rook takes e7 check, knight h6 check, and queen e5 here, hitting h8, hitting e7, multi-purpose. Attacking with, you know, kind of overwhelming for black. You know, black's going to be being crushed here. So anyway, after g6, bishop takes e7 check, though, was played, which is also strong. Knight takes g6, double check. King has to move. Knight takes h8. So the game is played on. Bishop takes d4. We have rook b3. This rook is threatening to join the party. And it does with rook f3. So rook takes h8 and now g4. So white's getting a definite material advantage now. Rook g8. We have queen h6 being played. Check. Rook takes f5 check is also possible. This position, we can go with this. That even though black's got an extra pawn, we are the exchange up. And for example, check, check, check. These checks are not going to end well for black. Yeah, and also insert an attack on the queen with tempo. And then we carry on with the checks here. and then we can win the queen. It's pretty crushing stuff. Rook takes f5 check. But queen h6 check was chosen. Rook g6, and now very simple actually, continuation. Can you see for 10 points? What would you play here? Check all checks again. Yeah, just rook takes f5 check and this ends the game. If queen takes f5, we play queen f8 check. We've got a killer common square. The pawn is supporting f5. We take on f5. It's all over basically here. For example, here, checkmate. So anyway, the game ended on rook takes f5. So Steinitz is actually one of the world champions who had really severely bad crushing losses against the Evans Gambit. It's kind of fascinating to check into these losses. So here he's even improved theoretically, dramatically improved theoretically in this World Championship game. Very good move here. But he throws it away a bit later, the advantage, any slight advantage that black might have. With bishop d7, white is actually slightly better here now. And there's even an improvement on bishop b2, knight a3. Could actually be an improvement as well. But yeah, bishop b2 is kind of logical for this diagonal to be dangerous. It has got its own good points as well. So yeah, this is kind of a pleasant position for white as well. This idle pawn center threatening to expand to open up the Fianchetto bishop. It's really nice stuff. a4 with the threat of a5. And it looks visually crushing at the point knight d6 check. What a success for the opening, even with Steinitz improving the first few moves. Great stuff. Thanks so much. Hi there. I hope you enjoyed that game sample. It's actually from my course, which you can find at the Kingscrusher TV page, which has great discounts. It's the Italian Game Mastery, the Ideal Beginner's Opening. So just very briefly, if we click there, you can also see other free sample videos. Just do expand all sections, and you can see these preview links if you want to see other free previews and get an idea of the course yourself. I'm going to keep it short here. Just basically to say I had a fantastic time seeing many, many brilliant games in the Italian game. You can see from the number of collections how epic some of these games are, that they've been collected like hundreds of times at chessgames.com. And yeah, I really hope you check out this index and may consider getting the course. Okay. Comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks very much.